Hello and welcome to episode 13 of the Sky Fantasy Football Podcast by Fantasy Football Hub. Apologies for those who tried to join on video. We had some technical issues, so we've just been able to do a podcast this week. Many apologies for that. We'll be back next week, all working, I promise. I'm joined as usual by two of the most successful Sky managers in the game. Firstly, Paul McAnulty. Paul, did you captain Danny Ings?
I did captain Ings, so good game week for me.
Many congratulations. And we also have former Sky winner Dan Cox with us. Dan, you threatened to have a beer for every goal that Jimenez and Ings scored. Are you pissed yet?
Well, I say it don't normally take me a lot, so two probably is enough. But luckily, I've just started drinking them. So I thought if I had them beforehand, it would be bad news. So I started now. So we'll see how I get on. You might have to cut me off towards the end, start slurring.
Great stuff. So we have another jam-packed show this week as we'll be discussing a quick review of Game Week 46 and so far into Game Week 47, some bonus points ownership and points per million stats. We will have a look at the remaining planned fixtures, including any 2-for-1s and 3-for-1s we know about and what we can expect in the coming weeks. We will look at the best transfer and captain options for the next week and our planned moves. We have a raft of community questions to get through. We'll have a quick look at the top of the Hub's £250 second half league, and we'll finish off with Dan's weekly rant. So let's not mess about, gents. Firstly, Dan, can you talk us through the key points of the week?
Yes, so Monday night, Manchester City Burnley. I had Aguero captain. I was pleased that he started. I was hoping for a good hat-trick or something like that, so I was more than devastated when he went off injured. At least he did get the assist, which didn't come up for a long time. There must have been some sort of delay in the Opta-stats coming through. But yeah, Aguero did get his assist, so that was something. But Foden, he was good. Mahrez, like Sterling, there's lots of good options there. I say now with Aguero being out for the season, that is, that is a bit of a problem for Manchester City. So that was that for that. A lot of people brought in Pope as well, I think, on Monday. I think a few went for that. So that was a bad night for him. He subsequently made up for it since, though. Yeah. Tuesday night, Leicester home to Brighton. Leicester have just been useless, haven't they? Not even since the overhaul, since the restart. Long before that, really, they've sort of been poor. Really, I know they beat Villa, was it 4-0 before that? Everything stops, but they've just been useless. Like Vardy, useless. Like, had him as my captain. I should have just stuck with Soyuncu. I brought Vardy in. Useless, 2 games. Like, Watford and Brighton, thought he would have done something, but not even shot, nothing. Useless. So that was then. Obviously, there was the West Ham Spurs game as well. I was really worried about Son and Kane, but they didn't do too much damage. I know Kane got a goal, Son got an assist, but I could live with that. The 24th, Liverpool, give Palace a hiding. I couldn't believe the Salah man of the match in that, because anywhere else you looked at, Fabinho was man of the match. Like Phil McNulty writes for BBC, or Israel was. Everyone was saying Fabinho, and they give it to Salah, and you're like, come on, I ain't got Salah. Like that was pretty annoying. Manchester United at Sheffield, home to Sheffield United. I brought in Rashford, so obviously Martial scores a hat trick. At least Rashford got a couple of assists. Yeah. I was worried with Fernandes. Like, I'm now thinking, we can get to it in a little while, but is Fernandes sort of risk of passing bonus with Pogba back in the side? Is that going to be a problem? I just brought Fernandes in, and is Pogba's sort of, readmission to the team going to affect that? Everton beat Norwich 1-0. I was really hoping Richarlison would have got a goal or two, but Man City, Chelsea again, De Bruyne, another goal. So annoyed. Do you know what I mean? Especially I had Ings captain. I hoped he would have got something against Arsenal, but nothing. Burnley kept a clean sheet against Watford, so the people who brought in Pope did all right. That's the midweek games. I'll quickly go on to Villa Wolves. Really hoping Jimenez would have got a goal or two, especially as I was going to treat myself to a beer for it. And he didn't, but at least he got man of the match. But again, that was a pretty dodgy one. He didn't. I know they said he did a really good pass to, I forget who that, it was to Otto, who then set up, the goal. But yeah, to see him get man of the match was a bit of a surprise, but I'll take it after being so annoyed with the Salah dodgy one in midweek that didn't go for me. I'll take the one that did go my way, and that's just how it goes. And then today, Danny Ings, star man, only 2 goals. Brilliant stuff. Unfortunately, he did get man of the match, but he didn't get shots bonus. He literally had them 2 shots on target, and he only made 1 tackle. But he made that tackle within the first 10 minutes. So I was thinking, we might get tackle bonus and shots. And But, I can't complain with 34 points as captain. So, yeah, it was not a bad week, really.
Yeah, I think that Sarr owners were a little bit unlucky, I think, weren't they? Because they had the home game. He's been playing well, and it was basically Sarr versus Ings, wasn't it? And obviously, on this occasion, Ings smashed it. I think all three of us actually captained Ings, but there's plenty who would have captained Sarr, and quite rightfully as well, because who'd have thought that Ings would have so far started every game, and played the majority of minutes in every game as well. So I think Sarr owners can count themselves a little bit unlucky there because they've done some good planning, but it just hasn't worked out. But so there it is.
His form's tipped off a little bit since Lafayette's been injured on the opposite wing.
Yeah.
It's like an imbalance or something there.
Yeah. Okay, so we're just going to look at some bonus points and ownership stats then. So Dan's got some stats for us. Firstly, bonus points stats, Dan.
Yeah, so we'll start with the tier 1 saves. I'll quickly rattle through them. Gaeta of Palace has made tier 1 saves 15 times. I know he's now injured now. Patricio really shot into this list of late. He's now made 14 tier 1 saves. Henderson with 13, De Gea with 12, and Pope with 12 as well. Tier 2 saves, this is Dubravka 11 times. Leno with 10, Krul with 10, Ramsdale with 9, Lloris with 9. One I really like is tackles bonus. I'll just go to T2 tackles. I won't go for T1. Wan-Bissaka is hit at 8 times. Pereira is hit at 7 times, even though he's been injured. He's still second most made tier 2 tackles. Gilbert made it 6 times. How cheap is he? Aurier, I know a lot of people went for Aurier, but I never really fancied him. 5 times. And then Didi has made it 5 times. Another my favourite is tier 2 passing. Van Dijk is hit at 18 times. That's unreal, isn't it? Fernandinho 13 times. Rodri 12. Gundogan, is that how you pronounce him? 10 times. And Joe Gomez 9 times. That's just shows you Man City and Liverpool lead the way with passes. Tier 2 shots. I was quite surprised who was leading the way. Calvert-Lewin was 6 times he's hit tier 2. Rashford 5, Jesus 5, Salah 5, and Tammy Abraham with 5. So I was quite surprised with that, especially Calvert-Lewin.
It's interesting with Rashford because obviously over this next week or two, there's going to be a lot of decisions made down there about which United player to bring in because you've got so many options now in Fernandes, Pogba, Martial and Rashford. If Rashford is hitting those numbers, that could be, potentially a deciding factor. Okay, so I've pulled some stats on points per million. So this is really interesting actually. So I'll do this kind of once a month, I think, so that, we get the fresh sort of data. But who do you think, Paul, I'll ask you first, who do you think has got the best points per million ratio in the game? Would you guess?
I know the goalkeepers tend to do pretty well in it, and you can't build a team of 11 goalkeepers. So I'd guess Dean Henderson.
Okay. And who do you think, Dan, out of the whole game has got the best points per million?
I'd have said Henderson or Soyuncu.
Impressed, guys. Henderson is the best. He's the best in terms of goalkeepers. He's also the best in the whole game. So he's got a points per million of 29.06, which is really, really high. Patricio has got 26. Pope has got 25. Dubravka 25. Kasper Schmeichel 25. Guaita 24 and Foster 21, with Ryan on 20 and Leno on 20 as well. So that's very high points per million scores there for goalkeepers, and it shows now why, because I'll move on to defenders. Dan, you were right. The highest PPM for a defender throughout the season has been Soyuncu at 26.61. The next one down is Alexander-Arnold with 22, then Baldock at 22, Van Dijk at 21, Johnny Evans at 21, and Pereira at 20. And they're the only ones over 20, which is quite interesting. If we move on to midfielders, who do you think has got the best points per million for midfielders? Dan, can I ask you first?
I think it probably would have been someone like Mount towards the beginning, but I couldn't even have a guess.
No, okay.
Really don't know.
Mount's not a bad shout. How about you, Paul?
Even though he's one of, if not the most expensive, I'll guess De Bruyne, because I think he was quite clear at the top of points.
Okay, so top is actually Adama Treilery. So he's got a PPM of 20.43, but he is the only midfielder with a PPM of 20 plus, which is very, very interesting. If you just go a bit further down, then De Bruyne's is 19.82, Grealish is 17.97, Cantwell is 17.76, Mount then, Dan, in at 17.4, and then you've got Lundstrom, Richarlison and Barnes also around 70. What I find really interesting here is the goalkeepers, you're talking numbers like, 29, 26, defenders, 26, 22, midfielders, only Adama Treilery is 20 plus. And then we move into strikers. So who do you think for strikers has got the best points per million over the season?
Danny Ings.
Well, actually, the stats I've got don't include today's games, I would say. But
Calvert-Lewin would be my guess.
Okay. And Dan?
Jimenez, is he? Might be Jimenez. Yeah, I'll go with Jimenez.
Okay. Top of the shop is Tammy Abraham, because he's 8.3 million. He's got 167 points. So he's 20.12. And again, he's the only striker with a PPM above 20. You've then got Pukki at 19.36. Danny Ings at 19, though that would have increased, obviously, after today's game. So he may be now over 20. You've got Jamie Vardy at 17.94. Raul Jimenez, Mopai, Mane, AU, Salah. Calvert-Lewin is down at 16.93. So I find it's really, really interesting the way we, set up our teams in terms of, a normal kind of team would have maybe, a decent keeper, maybe a couple of premium defenders, couple of cheaper ones, cheapish midfield with De Bruyne and an expensive attack. But I can understand it from a captaincy view, having the attack there. But this has really made me kind of look at, how we structure our teams, because all the value where the points are seem to be, goalkeeper, defence, and potentially moving to midfield. So it's a really interesting thing to think about moving forward. So I want to take this every month. Does that surprise you, Paul? Is that what you expect?
It surprises me a little bit, but it's not too far away from what I expect.
Okay.
Because Carl Week, the hub contributor, he builds his team based on that metric a lot, doesn't he?
He does, and I think he finished about, was it 30th last year or something like that, wasn't it? How about you, Dan? Does that surprise you in terms of the numbers?
I know there's always been a good goalkeeper. There's been a goalkeeper who has done well. I don't know really. I think for the first early part of the season, the midfielders were there was nothing really. Apart from De Bruyne, there was just, I know Mount was there and Grealish, but there was no one who I just don't know. They just weren't doing it for me. But yeah, I don't know. It gives you something to think about for next season, about how you sort of structure your team and spend your money.
Well, just to kind of hammer it home as well, so I've picked up the top 20 players in the whole game for PPM. Only one of them is a striker. 2 of them are midfielders, 6 are defenders, and 11 are goalkeepers. So obviously you can only have one goalie, but in terms of, looking at a formation there, it kind of makes you think that potentially next year, the whole Laporte, Maguire, VVD, sort of things with a cheaper midfielder, De Bruyne, a couple of cheaper strikers, and then rotate, an Aguero with a Salah or whatever else. But all those really expensive strikers, none of them are in there. And maybe, I don't think it's a one-off either in terms of, in terms of the season, because as Paul has mentioned, so Carl, the Hub's statistician, finished, I think he was 30th or 33rd or something last year, purely based on this evidence. So yeah, as we say, just something to think about for next year, really. If you find it very interesting, I'll update this every month, and we'll have a look now probably at the end of the season. But when we look to go and build our Game Week 1 teams, this is certainly something I will revisit because I find it very interesting. So our last part in terms of stats then, so this is ownership. Dan, you've got some ownership stats for us?
Yeah, so I really like looking at the ownership of players, and especially with the transfer stats that we get when we get them. I just think it really helps sort of thing. So I looked Monday morning, Aguero was in 34.5% of the top 1,000. And as he was going to be my captain, I was thinking, well, that's good, because if he gets a couple of goals or a hat-trick, I've made ground on, 60-odd%, so that's good. Obviously, he got injured. Then I looked the next day, he's down to 26%. So I'm thinking, well, that's good, because people are now used. And if people have brought a transfer to bring him in, or, now to get him out, by Wednesday, he'd gone down to 5.5% in the top 1,000. So I know that, people are bringing him out. And I think it's even then interesting. So that was Wednesday morning. Where are we? I looked Saturday morning. He was still in 5.1% of the top 1,000. So you think, he got injured Monday night. Why is he still in teams on Saturday morning when all teams played during the week? So I'm then thinking, is that 5.1%, 51 teams in the top 1,000 who haven't got any transfers left?
Yeah.
Just gives you a little thing. Then look today, like Paul's mentioned to me before we recorded, like he's now in 4.2%. Do you know what I mean? So have people taken him out again, or have those teams fell out of the top 1,000 because they've got no transfers left and they're carrying an injured player who's out for the season? So that was Aguero's one. I then checked Kane and Son on Tuesday morning. They're on 2.7 for Kane and 2% for Son. Oh. By Wednesday morning, they'd gone up to 12.7 for Kane and 12.1 for Son. So I could see that Aguero, people who are moving off Aguero are going onto Kane or Son. By Thursday morning, then I can't remember what it was before, but like Martial had then gone up to 8.8%. So people had brought him in. Rashford had gone up slightly. He was on about 2%. He'd gone up to 9.1%. So I can then see where people are then moving off Aguero too. Yeah. So that was the main ones midweek. And sort of other ones that caught my eye this week, that Jesus he's in 0.9%. So he's in 9 of the top 1,000 teams. So if you want a differential to try to do something, there's one. Sterling is only in 4%.
Wow.
Calvert-Lewin's in 11%. Aubameyang is in 18.5%, which isn't a lot considering they play Norwich midweek. A lot of people are eyeing that one up as a captaincy. Vardy in 16.6%, but he's been really disappointing and I've got rid. Jimenez yesterday was in 46.3% of teams. So I was really hoping that he'd get a couple of goals and I could really sort of punish half of the top 1,000, but he couldn't really do a lot. And then Ings today, only in 32% of the top 1,000. So I was delighted when he gets a 34-point captaincy and really pushed me up in the rankings. So I was pretty pleased with that. Especially, and the Saar was in 18.2%. So if he'd have done something, he's not in a lot of teams. So that's why I like looking at the ownership. If you want to try to do something different, or you're trying to protect a lead, you sort of go with the obvious sort of the most picked, or it just depends what your strategy is until the end of the season.
Sure, and those Man City ones. So, like looking at Jesus, what you say, on like under 1%, and Sterling at 4%. Man City's fixtures from now to the end of the season are Southampton, Newcastle, Brighton, Bournemouth, Watford, and Norwich. That is an unbelievable run. They are by far the best in the way fixtures for any team until the end of the season, with Man United close behind, with Bournemouth, Villa, Southampton, Palace, West Ham, and Leicester. If
you can wait till Wednesday, the 8th of July. Man United at home at Newcastle then, and you get to see the team sheet as well, so that might be the kind of opportunity to bring in Jesus or Sterling as a differential.
Perfect. So talking about fixtures then, Paul is going to talk us through the next lot of fixtures, any kind of 2-for-1s and 3-for-1 opportunities, and also Ian Parron is very, very kindly in the Sky WhatsApp chat giving us a bit of a view of what he thinks is going to happen in terms of the FA Cup semi-finals and the impact that will have. So over to you, Paul.
Yeah, so something I tend to look at at the start of the season is what's, I guess, traditionally we talk about is 2-for-nothings or 3-for-1s, where a player in your team's already played in that game week and you make a transfer to another player that's not played in that game week, so you're gaining an extra game, and it might be 2 or 3 games that team will play until the team of the player that you're transferring out plays again.
Yeah.
That method I'm always cautious with, because to get the player back in, it's obviously 2 transfers, transfer out and transfer back in. What I tend to think about more is like chain transfers. I wanted Rashford in from Manchester United, and I wanted to take a player out. So I guess an opportunity here would be if Wolves have just played Aston Villa, so they played their game this week, they could take out Jimenez. And then I could bring in Aubameyang, so Aubameyang for that nice captaincy opportunity at home to Norwich this week. Arsenal then play on the first calendar day next game week, so you get the Arsenal game out of Aubameyang there, and then Man United play a calendar day after that. So that would be 2 transfers, but I'm ultimately making the move that I've always wanted to move by getting Rashford in, and then I'm getting the captaincy out of Aubameyang, the additional game out of Aubameyang, and then the move to Rashford. So there's a couple of these opportunities coming up. Like I said, the Wolves one's a big one in my opinion. You could even, if you're sitting with Jota on your team, I know his ownership's relatively high. He's not been hitting the heights that he was pre-restart. and been frustrating a lot of fantasy managers getting hooked after 60 minutes. Or if Traore plays, he might be on the bench. You could then bring in Van Aanholt or Tarkowski if your formation allows it, for the Palace-Burnley game tomorrow, or indeed Zaha if you've got the budget as well. And then you could move on to Son or Richarlison at the end of this game week, which would allow you the captaincy there if you were missing someone. Or you could transfer on to the Man United asset next week, like the Rashford example I gave there. With Ian Parham's fixtures, the estimated fixtures, so what Ian's looked at, the fixtures that we don't know are for the second part of Sky Game Week 49, Sky Game Week 50, and then we know that Sky Game Week 51, because the last day of the season, all the games are 3 p.m. kickoffs on a Sunday, so we don't need to worry too much about that. So it's the two sets of games before that. Now we know that what calendar days the first half of Game Week 49 is on, so we know how games will be pushed out. So if the team's playing on the Monday, they won't then play till the Thursday in the midweek, so we've got that information as well. And then the FA Cup games, so the 4 teams that have progressed to the semi-finals don't play each other, so there's a free midweek before the last game of the season, so we know that the 4 games will be pushed out to the midweek there. Now, with the Sky rights, we know that Sky will have the game on the Monday night, that game week as well. And there's only, between the Sunday and the Monday's games, it's Brighton, Newcastle, Tottenham, Leicester, Wolves, Palace, and Bournemouth, Southampton. And I think there's only a couple of those games that can play on the Monday night. With it being a South Coast derby and Bournemouth being involved in the relegation battle, there's a fair chance that I think that the Bournemouth-Southampton game could be moved to the Monday night, which would be a standalone captaincy game. So Southampton's fixtures don't look great over the next few game weeks, but if you're really low on transfers and you already own Ings, and you can make moves elsewhere in your team, it might be worth holding on things. Or if you don't own Ings just now, keeping a transfer back to make that move later down the line. Sure. Similarly, on Tuesday the 14th, so that's on game week, the second part of game week 49. Yeah. On the Tuesday night, as I predicted that the games they'll play then is West Ham against Watford. So if you've got Sarr, you've got a captaincy cover there. But Chelsea would be at home to Norwich as well. So it's going to be a really prime opportunity to captain a Chelsea asset. Now, Pulisic is the kind of player that's pulling up trees just now at Chelsea. And looking back then to see when would be an ideal time to pull a Chelsea player for a player that you've already owned that's played that game week. And the only opportunity to do that is this game week that we're in just now. Right. So if you did want a Chelsea asset and you think Pulisic is nailed now, or perhaps that's Piliqueta, someone that, or even Mount, it might be an opportunity to get the Chelsea player in this week. So whether it's one of your Wolves assets, like say Jota or Doherty, or you've got the Palace or the Burnley player that you want to move on, then getting the Chelsea player in for Wednesday night when they play away to West Ham might be the only opportunity where you're getting a 2-for-1 to get the Chelsea player in.
Okay. Cool. That's really, really, really insightful, Paul, and really helpful, because I've got Ings and I was having an hour in Burring because I didn't, I saw his fixtures weren't nice, but if you do have that standalone game, that is really, really important. And Pulisic, so I had a look at him earlier. He's 0.3% owned in the top 1,000, which is obviously incredibly low. Very explosive. He's quite expensive, I think. 10.1, same as Bruno, and same as players like Van Dijk in this. But and he came off earlier with a suspected knock, so maybe that's just one to keep an eye on. So, but yeah, I think Pulisic is a great shout. Mount is obviously still incredibly cheap. We expect him to be a lot more expensive next year. I think he's played well, actually. I think Willian has looked really good as well. They look to be on penalties as well, while Jorginho's out. So yeah, some really good options there. So Wednesday is the one then, and then you get that extra game further on. Fantastic. Thanks for that. And thank you for Ian in our Sky WhatsApp chat for explaining that out. I couldn't get my head around it. So thank you, Paul, for unfurling it and explaining and understanding it. Okay, so our transfer captain plans for this coming week then. Dan, can you talk us through your planned captaincy and any transfers?
So yeah, with what I put something similar in my Sky article last week that basically we haven't got the dates for the 14th, 15th, 16th, and then that FA Cup weekend, and then we knew there was going to be this midweek game where they'd be arranged. So, do you know what I mean? I ain't got many transfers left now, so I'm not planning on making any until we get like that. What Ian's suggested, like confirmed, that is a real thing, and I'm hoping they'll do it by this week. Would be ideal if they could do it before the 2nd. What is that? Is it Thursday? Or that would be a dream. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, so tomorrow night, I'm skipping it. I was going to bring in Tarkowski or something, but I'm skipping it. It's going to be 1-1. I'm not going to watch it. I'm going to watch Coronation Street and forget it. Man U, Brighton. I've got Rashford or Fernandes, so seeing on the starting lineup. I know people are worried about Fernandes because he played the whole game yesterday and he just plays every minute, doesn't he? But I've got an option in case he doesn't. With some people, I've just got him. So, but I can choose between Rashford or him. On the first, it's not a great day for me, really. I don't have any Arsenal players, so I'm probably going to stick with Soyuncu. Hope we get past some bonus away to Everton. I am worried about Aubameyang, and he didn't play today, so he should start because we were talking about whether it's because he started basically all the games.
He was bound to miss one, wasn't he? He was bound to miss one, but he missed
I was hoping he'd have played today and then wouldn't have played against Norwich because Norwich is a give me, innit? So I'll be on Soyuncu, and then on the Man City, Liverpool, Spurs, Sheffield United, I'll be on De Bruyne, I think. But I'll be moving on to De Bruyne. But I really want to get these fixtures sort of set in stone before I do, because I was looking at losing Jimenez or Ings. But like Paul was saying, if Southampton are playing Bournemouth on a single game day, then I want Danny Ings. So I'm just going to really try and hold off until something comes in more concrete, because I'm really low on transfers now and I'm trying to get to that top 100. So I just need to, I don't know. I really just need them set in stone so I can make a plan.
Agree. And how about Saturday and Sunday? Would that be like a United player? And then
the 4th and the 5th. Yeah. Again, I've got Rashford or Fernandes penciled in.
Yeah.
And then Sunday, De Bruyne if I bring him in.
Yeah.
That'll be De Bruyne, I should think. Yeah, he was going to do both. Yeah. So yeah.
So you're holding off on your transfers then, I suppose, is the key message there. You're ignoring these kind of random single game days and just trying to...
I know he's done great work, but I just want him to... I'll skip tomorrow night, but I really just need to hold on for whatever carnage comes up in these last 3 sort of rounds of games that are going to be announced.
Cool. Thanks for that, Dan. Paul, could you talk us through your plans?
Yeah, I won't be making a transfer tomorrow, so I'm going to go without a captain. I think the time to get Pope in was Thursday past.
Yeah.
Pope would have been the move. I know a few people made it, and congratulations on those people. I think we had talked about it before in one of the pods. I don't know if it was last week or the week before. But I'll be holding off. If it was a Palace player, their fixtures are really tough afterwards, so you'd want to move them on as well. I like the PVA shout if you've got plenty of transfers, moving on and then moving off again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll be missing that. The only Man United player I've got for Tuesday night is Bruno. So I've been looking. It's not definitely a move that I'm going to make, but I've been looking at Maguire. Baldock to Maguire. I've got cash saved up because last week when I seen the Man City lineup, I was going to do the move to get De Bruyne or Laporte in, and neither were playing. So I moved on to Aguero. Take the 10 points. Not happy about the injury, but then I moved on to Ings. So I wouldn't have been in this position now, I think, if it had all worked out differently. So I could do Baldock to Maguire on Tuesday. If Fernandes plays, I won't make any move though, and I'll just captain Fernandes. And then what I'm hoping for is people have still got Richarlison's blank against Norwich in their mind, because I'm hoping that Richarlison would be a differential captaincy pick on Wednesday. I like Richarlison. He takes a lot of shots. Gets tackle bonus quite often as well. So you're not necessarily relying on him getting goals to get a decent return as captaincy. I don't have Aubameyang and I've got no plan to bring him in. So that'll be Wednesday. And then Thursday, I don't own De Bruyne either, and I've got plans to get De Bruyne in further down the line, but I want to hold off as long as possible based on being short on transfers. So I'm just going to captain Van Dijk. Liverpool away City. When the Liverpool rotation comes, which I'm sure it will, I think it'll be a little bit further down the line. I think they're still, they can still break the 100 points tally, and until that's out of their hands, I think they might still play relatively strong, albeit with some changes. But Van Dijk would be someone that I don't think would be getting rotated for that Man City game.
I agree with that, yeah.
That takes us on to the Saturday. So Fernandes, I'm still holding on to Vardy. So Vardy at home to Palace. Jimenez could be a good shout. I'm really not giving it too much thought yet. Soyuncu, again, gets passing bonus regularly. Home to Crystal Palace, probably fancy him there. Yeah. So I might go down that route. But Wolves at home to Arsenal, I think Jimenez is probably going to be my captain there. And then the Sunday before next week's podcast, that might be my move. I might make the Vardy to De Bruyne move on Sunday and then captain De Bruyne there.
Cool. Okay, thank you very much for that. So we'll just run briefly through mine. So I haven't got a captain for tomorrow. I'm probably going to avoid as well. I've only got four transfers left. So I think there's better games to target than Burnley and Palace. And even if you were getting another captaincy out of them, I think a transfer may be worth it, but we're not really. And they're both quite unpredictable, both quite low scoring. I think the only one I would say to those who are holding more transfers, I do like Van Aanholt. AU looks good, even though Burnley beat Watford on Thursday night. I watched the highlights, and Watford should have scored a few goals. So Pope got a lot of save points and bonus points for that because Watford were peppering their goals. So I would think AU potentially or Van Aanholt maybe a decent shout if you are going for that. Tuesday, so I haven't got a United player yet. I was planning on looking at Pogba, Rashford or Martial as differential, but Bruno is very cheap and he's cheap in terms of being a midfielder. So he's 10.1 and my striker spots are kind of taken up at the moment with captaincies for future games. So I was looking at other players, but Bruno's ownership is still reasonably low. He's not like a 70 or 80% yet. So I may have to go for him, which I'm a bit disappointed about because I'm chasing and I wanted something a bit different, but I can get him in for Jota. Paul, as you mentioned earlier, I'm a disillusioned owner. Jota came off on the 59th minute. He plays okay. He had a really good chance, which he missed, but I don't want to play a player who's playing for an hour. So that may be my move on Tuesday. Wednesday, I've got Harvey Barnes, who obviously missed the last game. He's away to Everton, which is not the most exciting fixture for Harvey Barnes either. I've also got Fabianski in goal, still strangely enough, who's playing Chelsea. However, I'm looking at that Arsenal-Norwich game. Norwich just played 120 minutes against Man United. They were given the runaround. Aubameyang is still low in ownership. I think you mentioned it earlier, Dan. 24%.
Yeah, only on when I think the last time I checked it was like 18%. Thing about Norwich is we put out I think we put out a pretty good team yesterday, and seems to me like we were more going for the FA Cup. I think they've accepted that they're down, and they were going for the FA Cup. So I think they'll really just give up now. Like that'll Arsenal probably beat them 4-0 or something. Arsenal
will be fresh. Aubameyang will be fresh. I'm actually very tempted to go for Nketiah. So he's 6.6 million. He was on the bench as well. He's 0% owned in the top. So not one manager owns him in the top 1,000. And looking at the way that Arsenal have played in the last few games, Aubameyang has been on the left. He's trying to feed Nketiah. Nketiah looks very, very dangerous. And a lot of people will be on Aubameyang, which is fair enough. He
scored against Southampton, shouldn't he, Aubameyang? He hit the bar, didn't he?
Well, Aubameyang had 7 shots against him. He had 4 on target as well. So I've captained him in FPL just based on just based on that. But I'm undecided. But I think I will be bringing in one of them. The problem is I can't afford Aubameyang without messing around a little bit elsewhere, without taking out, for example, Ings or Jimenez. Who I want for future captaincy. So I need to have a think about it. But I'm also it's going to be one of those. You see the lineups, and I'm going to be like, right, I'm going for it, either Aubameyang or Nketiah. I haven't made my mind up yet, but I think if Nketiah has a good game and Aubameyang has a quiet game, that is an opportunity to absolutely fly up the ranks because he is 0% owned. It's obviously great. So that's Wednesday. Thursday, I've got Son, I've got De Bruyne. So obviously Son's away to Sheffield United, De Bruyne home to Liverpool. Bit of a tough one. I'll probably make a decision on the day there, I think. Saturday, if I do go for Bruno, I will have Bruno. Especially if I've taken out Jimenez for Nketiah, Aubameyang. So based on what Paul mentioned earlier, I'm definitely going to keep Ings. That'll be with Son, Ings, and either Nketiah or Aubameyang. Obviously, I want Son for the captaincy day next week as well. It's where it gets very, very complex because you have to think about the following weeks and stuff, don't you? And then on Sunday, I've got Van Dijk, I've got De Bruyne. I'll make a call then as well. So they're my kind of plans. So I am planning a transfer or two this week, which will only leave me a couple of transfers, but I do think that Arsenal game is a bit of a, if you look at the games left, that all the stars are aligning there for someone to have a really, really good game. So I just can't leave it alone really, and I don't really fancy Harvey Barnes or Fabianski as captain. So I can see a chance of a 34 sort of pointer there. I think so.
Gives you a good captaincy option on Tuesday the 7th of July as well, which again is the sort of game day one of that part of the game week. So you could then move off them as well. They're at home to Leicester. And
then maybe I could look at what we talked about, maybe Sterling, maybe Jesus then as well, because that starts to hit Man City's run. It doesn't mean I'm down to a transfer or two, right? But it's my own fault for being in this position. I just have to make the best of it. So there are our plans for the week. Hopefully they've helped everyone with their plans, given everyone some ideas. So we've got masses of questions, so we will try and get through them all if we can. We've answered a few of them actually just we've been talking, but first one from Can I Just Shock You, Tim Barry, with transfers getting low, is Aubameyang really worth captaining against Norwich, or just hide behind the sofa and hope he doesn't haul? So I've given my thoughts. I think it's a fantastic fixture for Aubameyang. Paul, what are your thoughts?
If I had 6 or more transfers, I would bring Aubameyang in and do the chain move that we just discussed there.
Yeah.
Any less, five would be teetering on a maybe, and then below that, I've got 4 left, and I won't be transferring.
Chance for you to catch up with you then, Paul, on Wednesday. And how about you, Dan? Is it essential to have Aubameyang on Wednesday?
I'm really worried not having him because, like I said, I'll be on Soyuncu captain. So I mean,
and inspiring 8 points.
Yeah, and I'll be on Soyuncu again. Like when Paul said, when you could captain Aubameyang against Leicester at home, I'll be on Soyuncu that. So would you I'd rather have Aubameyang for both them games as captain than me with Soyuncu. So I'm particularly worried. That'll probably be one of them ones where I'll have a bet on Aubameyang to get us a couple of goals or something like that to soften the blow.
So neither of you guys are going for him then. I'm either going for him or Nketiah, depending on how I feel. But
I'm not ruling it out. I haven't got it penciled in at the minute, but things might change.
It's one of those 5:45 adrenaline moments.
Yeah, when
that kind of, oh God, I've got to do
when the lineup comes out or something like that, and he's playing through the middle or something, you think, oh my God,
that definitely means Dan's transferring him in. And every time that he says that, he always makes the move.
There we go, and that's why he's the champion, right? He makes those winning moves. Yeah. Okay, question off Aaron Alton. I noticed moved up to second today in the overall leaderboard. Fantastic, Aaron. Very well done. Is there an update on average transfers remaining? I don't think there has been, Dan.
No, we haven't got anything since before everything restarted. So it was same. The top 10 was 4.5, top 100 was 5.3, top 1,000 was 6.1, top 5,000 was 6.4. But with Aguero, the amount of teams he was in, being injured, people will probably be on 2 or 3, I should think, would be the average now. That will really be down now because I know I had to take Aguero out and people would have made moves that someone like Ings, maybe they didn't today, but people would have made moves. You've seen the transfer stats, the ownership stats for Kane and Son and Rashford and Martial all go up. So, people have moved off Aguero. So, yeah, I'd say they're probably about 3 now. But that top 10 I know is getting light. I know the guy that said he did have 8 a couple of weeks ago is now top. So if he's like, I haven't got no reason to doubt him. I know he's an experienced fantasy football player, so he probably has got what he says. So I'd put him as sort of a bit of a favourite now because he is top and he has got above average transfers. So, but hopefully I'll hear something this week. So if I hear something this week, I'll tweet it out and, when I know, you'll know.
Cool. And just a final question, Aaron. How many moments in a week are you not thinking about football? He's having dreams about formation and transfers because he is within touching distance of the 50 grand.
Yeah. So when I was, I'd say for a couple of years because I was first and then I came 30th the season after. So I know that was the last thing I was thinking about before I went to bed and first thing I was thinking about when I woke up because, they sort of, sometimes they do the update about midnight if there'd been some midweek games. So you're sort of staying up till midnight for the update, taking a screenshot, working out who's got what points. And I have a little notebook of who I think's in other teams. And it's basically always on my mind. Because I work on my own all day, that's what I think about when I'm at work anyway. So, all the time, just addicted.
Okay, a question from Hornet. Salah and Mane. Do you need to own one of these for the final run-in, or is VVD the go-to man for 20 points plus, almost a banker as a captaincy option? Paul, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm not going to have either. Their ownership's surprised me how big it is. It's not changed much from when we discussed it last week. So I think if you add their ownership together, it's something like 75% of the top 1,000. Yeah, I guess I'm a bit nervous about it, but Van Dijk... What's the points difference for the season? Salah's on 208, Mane on 200, and Van Dijk's on 230. Van Dijk's got more points than both of them. So
Alexander Arnold's got more than both of them as well, hasn't he?
It's just that home to Villa game next weekend is really, really nice. After that, I think after home to Villa, they're away to Brighton, then they're home to Burnley, which is obviously a nice one. Then they finish off away to Arsenal, home to Chelsea, away to Newcastle. So I think their run isn't the kindest. You'd think they would take their foot off a little bit. It's just that Villa game on Sunday. But I personally think if you've got VVD, as you say, you're guaranteed. And he's always an attacking threat as well. He hasn't scored many goals yet this season. But if he gets that goal as well, you could be on for a 30, 40 pointer there.
Yeah, I was thinking that... I wonder how teams are set up because the majority of teams are going to have Van Dijk and Alexander Arnold, who are two of the most expensive defenders in the game. To cover that Everton-Tottenham game, you're going to have one, I suppose you could have Calvert-Lewin or Aurier, who's a little bit cheaper, but the majority of people is going to have Richarlison or Son, I think.
This is it.
Then you're going to have Jimenez. The people are doing well. I've got Ings, Bruno in midfield, and De Bruyne in midfield. So when you I know there is enablers like Soyuncu and Henderson and Baldock and Traore, but to have those players and then have like the top one up to have Salah or Mane, I can imagine a lot of people moving Salah or Mane onto the Everton or Spurs player on that Monday night. That's what I think will happen, but I don't know.
No, so I think the answer from us is I think we're all pretty content with VVD and TAA, I think is our kind of consensus there. Question from Lee Williams, fellow Welshman. With 9 transfers remaining, is it worth a double up on United? Already have Fernandes and with who? So Dan, you've already got the two you said, haven't you? You've got Fernandes and Rashford, and Paul, you were thinking of bringing a second United player?
Yeah, if I was bringing a second player, it'd be Maguire. His ownership's 3%. He's got clean sheets in the last 2 games. Passing tier 2 passing bonus in both of those games. Yeah. If you look at Man United's running, that's prime for a passing bonus. Man United's got something to play for. So although that means that Rashford will probably play most games, same with Martial. Maguire is the person that you imagine playing every minute of every game till the end of the season. He didn't even get dropped in the FA Cup. He's that important to them. So, if it was me to not completely restructure my team, it'd be Maguire I'd be looking at.
And Dan, is Rashford your second man?
Yeah, so like I said, I've got Fernandes and Rashford, so I'm quite happy with that because I said if for some reason one of them wouldn't play, which I can't see not happening because like Paul said, like United still trying to get that fourth spot.
Yeah.
No, I'm happy with them too. Although I did kind of wish I'd gone for Martial, but I don't know really. I'm happy with the two I got.
Cool. Okay. Next question off Matthew Seward. So with Bruno playing 120 minutes on Saturday, would you bring in Rashford or Martial if you have no other coverage and Bruno is rested? I have 8 transfers remaining. So it sounds like he's got Bruno, but if he is rested, would you bring in Rashford or Martial? So I think Dan's on Rashford. I think, Paul, you're thinking Maguire by the sound of it over those two. I would probably say I don't think away to Brighton is an easy fixture. Brighton, I think, have had a rest this weekend. They haven't conceded many, so I'm not sure that's the easiest fixture. I don't think it's not an Aubameyang versus Norwich sort of game for me personally. It's your call on that one. Ian Parrin at Planet Sky. When Vardy finally leaves my team after playing Crystal Palace next Saturday, who is the best replacement for the rest of the season? Enough money in the bank to afford any of Liverpool, Man City or Man United. He's already got Van Dijk, Alexander-Arnold, De Bruyne and Bruno. So he's got the 4 sort of key men in there. So who's that 5th person? Dan, can I ask you first?
It just depends on what he needs captaincy for. Like if he's not got anyone for the 6th for the Everton Spurs game, you could bring in Kane or Son and there'd be a captain there, and against Bournemouth and against Arsenal. It really just depends on your team. That's what I say. Like I get quite a lot of, when someone says, "Oh, what do you think of my Sky team here?" And it's like, it's just hard. It's what you want to do. People even today said, like, who should I bring in for tomorrow night? And I'm like, well, I haven't got anyone and I'm not bothered about not having anyone. But if you feel that, it's going to be 0-0 and, do you know what I mean? It is so hard. It just depends on what your team needs. Like, I've got someone for that Everton Spurs game, so I don't need to bring in a Spurs player, but it just depends what you need and what advantage you can get from it. So it is quite hard to answer.
Paul, who would your best replacement be for the rest of the season?
If I was basing this based on pure luxury, as in not thinking about captaincies, like the Jesus shout. The games I've watched him, he hasn't played particularly well, but the centre forward from Man City, with Man City's running, is sitting at less than 1%. Nice. I think that's a great differential. I
think I'd probably go for Sterling. I think he had man of the match earlier in the FA Cup game. He looked incredibly sharp, scored the one. He could have scored another 1 or 2. He's fit as a fiddle. He seems to be playing like nearly every minute. I've got no doubt he'll be rested for the odd game, but as long as you've got De Bruyne as well there, in terms of captaincy, I think Sterling, I think we said, is it 4%, Paul? So, something like that.
4% Sterling.
Incredibly low. And, for someone so explosive, he's hat-trick material, right? So, and their fixtures, as we kind of mentioned earlier, so City's fixtures, Southampton, Newcastle, Brighton, Bournemouth, Watford and Norwich, you could not ask for a better run-in. So I think Man City for me there. Question off Sam Cole. Any advice what to do with Jota? So we've mentioned a couple of things there. Obviously, it depends on captaincy, as we've said. I think Jota's 8.3 players, Paul, around 8.3, across the team. You think you could move to?
Well, it's got Wan-Bissaka and Maguire are both. I think it's Wan-Bissaka's 8.5 or 8.6. I think maybe 8.6. Yeah. Maguire's 8.9. So both of those.
Wow, Maguire's cheap, isn't he? Wow.
Both of those are good opportunities, particularly Maguire, I think, because of the passing bonus. I guess it depends how much you got in the bank. Like we mentioned, Pulisic, if you can afford the 1.9 difference, and we know that we get information from Lampard that he's going to play, this would be a good opportunity.
Agreed. Dan, anyone else around that price point?
Yeah, I think like Paul said, Maguire's a pretty good shout, isn't he? Like United have got such a good run-in, passing bonus, I prefer him to get passing bonus than I would sort of risking someone like Vardy trying to actually get a shot on target.
I think Foden might be a left field shout as well. I think he's going to play a lot of minutes towards the end. Came on earlier in the game again against Newcastle. He's different class. He looks superb. I think he's going to get a lot of minutes. He's very attacking. He's he's involved in everything they do. So I think Foden, not sure how much he is.
6.7. He's in 35 of the top 1,000 teams. So
is he really? There you go.
There's a few people on him, but for 6.7 million,
That's if you have the Spurs Everton game covered, and you can do a restructure, then Ori or Calvert-Lewin.
Yeah. Good show. Cool. I think we've already answered this off Marlon, Kira, Mal. Apologies, Marlon. I say your name every week, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, so please correct me if I'm not. With Bruno Fernandes playing over 2 hours of football yesterday in the FA Cup, do you need to look for alternatives? I think we've answered that one already. And he's also mentioned about skipping Monday night game, which it looks like all three of us are doing. So, Marlon, all depends on your transfer count. If you've got, kind of 7, 8, 9 transfers, it may be worth doing it or moving it on. We're all a bit lower than that, so we're not doing it. Question off Sam Miguel, Sky FF: is it better to just captain defenders than risk Pep Roulette on City forwards, managing the risk of blanking against fear of missing a haul? I think this is a season-long argument. Actually, I'm really looking forward to when we do a season roundup, and looking forward to the next season, because I reread my 2018-19 season review this week and what I put. And I put, I'm going to play 5 at the back next season. I'm going to captain defenders every time. And I haven't, because it's this, whole FOMO thing, right? But after looking again, at the PPM we said earlier, the kind of players we're looking at putting, in our teams, we're saying VVD is essential, top point scorer in the game, or one of them. We're looking at Maguire, we're looking at all these players. Yeah, it's really, really interesting. So, question, for the remainder of the season, Dan, can I ask you first, would you be looking at captaining, VVD over Salah, for example, and, maybe Laporte over Jesus? Or
that is a hard one. So I've got Van Dijk, so yeah, I'll be captaining him. I don't have Salah or Mane, so I don't know if that answers any questions there. But we always talked about this before, about you could just captain a defender every week. I think if you did that the whole season, yes, you probably would get a good position, but I don't think you're going to win it doing that. You have to be on one of these ones where, like, if Ings had scored a hat-trick today, or, you just need to catch them hat-tricks, do you know what I mean? Whereas sort of, I think if you captain the defender each week, it is like slow and steady, blah, blah, like that. You'd consistently get good scores, but I don't think you're going to win it. So
I don't know, mate. Obviously I'm going to argue here with a former winner, right? But say you catch a brace or a hat-trick, and let's say over a period of 3 games, let's say he scores 2 in one game, 1 in another, and blanks in the other, right? What are you talking there? Something like, 30 points, 20 points, and 5 points, say, for example. That's like 55 points in as captains over 3 games. That's for someone like, Salah or Aguero. You go for Van Dijk, and, he just keeps his 10-10-10, or even 10-10-5, right? So if it's, so he keeps a clean sheet, passing bonus, clean sheet, passing bonus, concedes and passing bonus. That's 25 points, which is more or less the same as the 50 we just talked about there. Mm. And that's without Van Dijk scoring a goal, having man of the match, or any of this sort of stuff. I don't know. It's definitely something.
I'm guessing it's changed. Like when I won it, like I remember, Kane got 29 or so goals. Lukaku must have got 24. Sanchez got 25. Ibrahimovic got a good 20 plus, I think. Costa even got a good sort of decent amount. I know they're all sort of now on about 17, 18, 19 sort of thing, but every sort of seemed to be every week that Kane was getting a brace or a hat trick, and same with Sanchez, and Lukaku was I remember he got a hat trick away to Sunderland and stuff. And so, but I know there doesn't seem to be that many. I'd have to check the stats on how many hat tricks there'd been this season, But then I say Manchester United on against Sheffield United. Oh, I'll just captain Maguire. Do you know what I mean? He'll get passing and a clean sheet. But then you didn't have Martial with his hat. You got to take that sort of risk sometimes. I don't know. It is. We'll do it next season. We'll do a just captain defenders.
We'll
team.
do a challenge team. We'll do an A versus B.
Yeah, we'll basically pick the same team, but I'll captain the strikers and you go for the defenders, and we'll see how we get on.
Yeah, there we go to that. Experiment. Yeah, because the Golden Boot last year was shared one between Salah, Mane, and Aubameyang. They all had 22.
Yeah.
Which is obviously low. And now looking at this year, I don't think anyone's on 20 yet, are they? So, we're not getting those 25, 30 holes anymore. But, it could be an anomaly. Or maybe, it's a thing of looking at, Aubameyang versus Norwich for me, right, is one of those games now where it's got hat-trick kind of on it. Maybe, Kane versus, home to whoever, or Man City home to...
I know what you mean, Aubameyang. He could be a 4-point captain against Norwich, or he could be a 34-point captain. If Arsenal could actually hit tier 2 passing and keep a clean sheet, you could have Luis. Do you know what I mean? And he'll get you 20 points somewhere. Somewhere just safe. Do you know what I mean? So it is all risk, and We'll do it next season. We'll see how we get on.
Really interesting stuff. Apologies, Paul, I interrupted you there, mate. Sorry.
No, sorry. What I was going to say is it's almost as important. I think this will probably come up in the season retrospective, if that's that's what we'll call it. But it's almost essential getting on the enablers, the good enablers, early doors.
100% agree.
Elsewhere.
Yeah.
Soyuncu and Henderson, I guess, were the two standout ones from this year.
Completely agree. If you can get on those early, it sets your team. You're kind of not wasting your transfers, are you? Because you just, you identify them. You understand that you're going to get, a few blanks, but then you get those just regular tick of points. You're not having to worry about anything. Anyway, that's a really long-winded answer to that question there, but a good debate all the same. Question from at FPL Equation, Luke Wilson, who's having a really good season. Is it worth swerving the Burnley Palace game? So I think we've answered there. But if not, who would you target in the respective 7.5 plus and under 7.5 price groups? So I think we said maybe Van Aanholt, maybe AU. Any cheap ones there for you guys for that game?
Really not looked at it, mate. I'm just pretending it's not happening, to be honest.
We're having shakes of heads. Apologies for that, Luke. How much rotation do we think City Liverpool will have now the league is done? Paul, what are your thoughts on City Liverpool rotation?
I'm not too sure. We've talked about Liverpool possibly rotating. And say they can still make the 100 points barrier. It might not be that important to them, but I've never really seen the point in, with 3 games to go, just playing the kids or playing the reserves for those games. If you wanted to bring the kids on to a game, surely sort of bleeding them in like 1 or 2 at a time, where you've got 8 or 9 world-class players playing beside them, is to really find out how well they fit into that team. It's all speculation. I think there'll be a bit of rotation. I think I see Van Dijk playing most games. I think Salah and Mane will play 3 and 4, so maybe 6 out of what's left, 8 games. Like maybe 6 starts out of 8 games, something like that. But
I thought that Nico Williams, who came on for Alexander-Arnold, looked really good when I came on the other day. So I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a couple of games, or Alexander-Arnold is brought off early, and stuff for him. But it's really it's really, really tough. I think City rotate anyway, right? So I just think that's just going to be part and parcel of City anyway. I think that Liverpool will give players like Curtis Jones. I think they'll get an odd game. So, but Liverpool's fixtures, they say, are not fantastic, and they're playing a few teams that have got something to play for. So Villa and Brighton next are both scrapping relegation. They then got Burnley. They then got Arsenal and Chelsea, who are chasing top 4, and finish with Newcastle. Whereas Man City, they're just good enough, and they've got the bench to swamp anyone. So not sure if we've answered that, mate. Question from Ross Vinter. What to do with Vardy? Dan, what to do with Vardy? Who do you move him on to? I think number one point is get rid.
Yeah, anyone.
Leicester have been awful, haven't they?
I really like Ings, and especially as Ings going for the golden boot. I think I'm going to keep him in. But Ings, Jimenez, really Rashford, Martial, just anyone apart from Vardy. Leicester just been terrible, haven't they? Really let me down. Just stitched me up all season, really. When I didn't have Vardy, he's banging in goals, and I get him in. He's just get rid.
Paul, what to do with Vardy?
I'm getting rid for De Bruyne next week, but because Leicester's fixtures are getting tougher, and Vardy does okay against the tough teams because they play a higher line usually. Yeah. I don't know. Having Vardy as a differential almost in the top 1,000 doesn't seem like. If you take away the last 3 games, and I was to say to you, if you own Vardy as less than 10% owned in the top 1,000, would you be happy about that? He's one of the players that you would want in that position. But I agree, watching him has been absolutely terrible. And there's multiple. Leicester always play at the start of the week for some reason, so there's multiple opportunities to get the Leicester game and then move on. Yeah,
and their fixtures, as you say, are quite mixed. So they're home to Palace, then they got Arsenal. They have got Bournemouth and Sheffield United then, which are decent fixtures. Then they finish off with Spurs and Man United, at which point you probably won't have a lot of transfers left. There's no point, moving him in to ship him out. In terms of what to do, look for look for a gap in your captaincies and just get rid as soon as you can. I just don't, he takes up a valuable striker spot and he's at a nice price. You can move on to these, really informed sort of players. So yeah, hope that answers it for you, Ross. Alistair Milroy, Pope to be transferred in to cover captaincy and rest of season ? For me, it depends on number of transfers left. I think if you've got, 7 or 8 plus, I think so. If not, there's probably better opportunities. As I say, even though Pope had a really good game against Watford, if you look at the game itself, the reason he scored so highly was he made a lot of saves. And just Burnley, Dyche has been talking about blooding youngsters, losing players, out of contract and all this sort of thing. So even though, I think that game last Thursday was a bit of red herring personally.
With that as well, I imagine the suggestion would be to move Henderson on, or the only goalkeeper that could have played, I suspect that they would have had that played this week would have been Patricio. So suggesting that they didn't have Patricio, you're not actually getting 2 games extra out of the goalkeeper move as well.
Yeah, I think if you're thinking about Pope now, you've already missed the points from Watford away, because I was thinking about bringing in Tarkowski for the Man City game, but thought, well, I'll swerve that. But as soon as it's too late, I think, they could keep a clean sheet tomorrow, but you could have brought him in for that Watford game because Henderson, let's say, didn't play. I don't know. You can do it, but you've already missed out on 11 points or so already.
Yeah.
Agree. Question from Ryan McCormick. Best cheap cover for the Everton-Spurs game? Good question. So Aurier probably jumps to mind for me. He's kind of 8.5. Anyone else, guys, for Everton-Spurs? Obviously, Calvert-Lewin, I think, is 8.3, I want to say, or 8.8 maybe. He's a decent price. Anyone else for Everton-Spurs?
I wouldn't be looking at it as a single game. I'd be thinking, for Spurs, I'll bring him in for Everton and Bournemouth, jumping off, I don't know. Well, you can move off Rashford, say, after they play Bournemouth, right, onto Son. You get Everton, Bournemouth and Arsenal, and then you can go back to Rashford, do you know what I mean? And you'll just miss Man U, Villa in that time. So you get the 3 Spurs games, one as a captain. So that's a little move if you've got transfers and you're flush and you want to do something like that. But just for, I know Warrior makes the tackles, but he just doesn't appeal to me. But yeah, if I had more transfers, I'd be looking at the Man U to Spurs, back to Man U.
Yeah. Paul, anyone from you there?
Yeah, other than those that we've already mentioned.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I kind of also think that Everton-Spurs game is going to be a decent game. I think it's going to be a 1-1 or like a 2-1 either way. So just to get someone in for cheap cover for that game, I probably wouldn't say is the best plan there, Ryan. Either do it, get in a good player with a future plan in place, or just avoid it probably. At Heskebo_SkyFF, I have Reece James stinking at my team. Despite limited transfers, 4 left. I think he needs to go. Where would you go for a replacement? 7.6 to spend. Could be a defender or a mid. So I'm just going to chuck up Phil Foden there again. Anyone else, guys? 7.6 or under?
Yeah, Foden. You could even wait for the Chelsea West Ham game, couldn't you, to see if he plays, and then move him on to Foden on the second. Then again, I don't know if Foden will start against Liverpool, but
he may not start every game, right, Foden? But when he does play, even when he comes on late, he tends to do something. I've seen him do it a few times. He comes on and he scores and things. So even if he doesn't start,
Reece James is 6 point something, and
I think he's 6.2. I think.
If you're low on transfers, you could just hold him and you'd probably be better off using the transfer to rotate a striker or something. How many points is whoever you bring in for James going to get over the next few so many games? I just don't know really.
You've only got 4 left. I think you probably got better opportunities to kind of use your striker. Maybe,
like I say, you could bring in Aubameyang for whoever, and he'd get 30 points, which is going to make up more than this sort of sideways transfer for someone of that price. So I just don't know really.
Yeah, Ben Mee's 7.4 if you want a captaincy for tomorrow, but
good shout.
I'd likely try and group that with another transfer that you want to do.
Yeah,
find out what your combined value is and work it that way.
Cool. Good stuff. Another question from Ryan McCormick. Also, is it more worth owning Aubameyang or Salah? So that's just a straight answer there. So mine would be Aubameyang for Wednesday. And I think they play early next week, but Arsenal's fixtures are not that good for the next few. So they've got they're away to Wolves, then they've got Leicester, who've been quite tight. They've then got their away to Spurs, and then they've then got Liverpool. So those 4 games are not nice, but they do finish with Villa and Watford. And Liverpool, as we've said, their fixtures are quite, the fixtures are okay. We're just not sure he'll start. So, Dan, one word, Aubameyang or Salah for the rest of the season?
Probably say Salah, to be honest, just because I don't have him, so he's one I'm worried about.
Paul?
Aubameyang just.
Okay, cool. Question from Adam Robinson at FPL Baby. Do we think the last 3 sets of fixtures will be added tomorrow or the 1st of July or around then? So I think it'll probably
be by Friday.
I think Friday. Yeah, I think they need to sort out the FA Cup, the dates and stuff. They know the weekend. They just need to sort out, be a few days. I would say that by Friday we'll probably know. I agree with that. Also, is there any good differential captains people can go for the next week or two? And Ketia, 0%. He is a definite option if you're really going for it. 6.6 mil if you've got transfers. Aubameyang's only 24% as well. Any other good differential captain options you can see for this week, guys?
Kane,
Son.
Kane's a good shout. Kane and Son are very, very low.
There's plenty in there. They just check on the stats, click on the players, see what their ownership is, and if it's low, whack them in. There'll be plenty. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like FPL. Like, if you look at that top 1,000, no one's got Samatta, no one's got Pukki. People just don't have them players in Sky in the top 1,000. Do you know what I mean? It's
all right, Dan, chill out.
The second beer's kicking in.
Any Man United player that's not Fernandes next Saturday be a nice differential as well, I think.
Thing is with Sky as well, obviously, because in FPL you had the unlimited, the transfer right, so everyone had the opportunity to refresh their teams. Because players like Rashford, Kane, Son, Pogba, all these players were all injured. They all basically started the restart on 0% almost. So I don't think ownership actually, apart from Salah and Mane, and Van Dijk, as you've already said, I think any player you actually want, Martial, Rashford, Aubameyang, Kane, Son, they're all very low owned in their own right. I don't even really think you have to go hunting as such. So I think it's a really good opportunity. It's a bit of a unique opportunity as well, because this has never happened before. This kind of the combination of of the lockdown combined with all these key players were all injured at that time, so they weren't owned. So just make hay and take advantage and basically get who you want, I think, because they're all under kind of 5 or 10% owned, really. Okay, ideally I want a City asset who is low owned Sunday or week after, but no lineups option. So low owned City asset. We've already mentioned Jesus 0.9, Sterling 4%, Foden's going to be very, very low. Yeah. There's a lot of options there. As I say, they're all low owned now. So okay, so that wraps up the questions. Thank you guys for all your thoughts there. Hopefully we have helped some people with their decisions. This is the second half Hub League update. So in 10th place we've got Peter Gilderdale. In 9th place, Mukul Shah, who's moved up from 18th to 9th. Well done, Mukul. In 8th place, Dan Sherwood. In 7th place, Ollie Bro. So Ollie Bro to 17th to 7th this evening. In 6th place, Warren Miller, who moved up from 20th to 6th place. Very well played, Warren. 5, LC Bishop. I think that might be Lee Bishop. Moved up from 11th to 5th. And the top 4 haven't moved. So Edwin Robinson is in 4th. Oliver Brown is in 3rd. Pete Kemp is in 2nd. And Cian McKenna, Sky Kangaroo. So he's changed his name, I think.
Has he changed it?
No, sorry. This is on the Hub League. I don't think he's changed it on Twitter.
Bollocks to him.
But he's 9 points ahead of Pete in the second half Hub League. So well done, Cian. And he's also 16th overall in Sky. So he has got a really good shout of a really good finish there as well. So well done to all you guys. Finally, we come to Dan's rant. Dan, what are you angry about this week?
I've got loads, mate. I could talk all night. Right. My neighbour, he's annoyed me, mate. He's still not done that Ivy.
You're joking.
No, but he's been pissing around. He's had like 2 barbecues this week. He's got a tent up in the garden. He's like having Glastonbury Festival in there. Get that ivy bloody cut. So that's annoyed me, right?
Fuming.
It's too hot this week. I've been boiling, mate. I didn't even sleep Wednesday or Thursday night. Sweating in bed, like sick of it, mate. You can't have the windows open because the bloody birds are like chirping away at R4. Fuming. I'm still addicted to Facebook Marketplace, mate. I just can't. I need to delete it. Like, yeah, I bought Back to the Future box set, £3. I just can't help myself. Like, I'll admit, I have a problem.
How much will they go for then, Dan? How much will you make from that?
I'll probably just keep them, mate, and educate the kids in a few years. Like, this is a good film. Watch the 3 of these. So that's annoying me. I ain't seen the cat, so don't start FPL Foxy. Don't start going on about the cat, mate. You're getting on my nerves. I ain't seen it. I've also, right, so I get on well with my hairdresser. He's a good lad. He plays Sky. So he's going to book me in on the Saturday so I can get the kids a haircut. Happy days. He's had a slight increase. Well, that's annoyed me. Why is there a slight increase for? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's an
extra. You got more hair, haven't you?
Well,
you got more hair. You want a haircut for me?
Me and I've got 2 kids, mate. I've had an extra £3 each. That's nearly a tenner. Like, come on, I'll cut it myself. So that's annoyed me. The Salah man of the match. He weren't man of the match. Come on, whoever they do these match reports. That's outrageous. So that's annoying. But also, this is my last one. They're going to reopen the pubs, right? So that's good news. But this is my idea, bit of a moan as well. They shouldn't let 18, 19, 20-year-olds in. They're just going to be out of control, out of hand, didn't they? They should leave it to, like, over 30s, I think, just to... We'll crack on the first weekend because we can be sensible and stuff. And all these 18... you stay down the park and drink your Skull and that. Do you know what I mean? We'll test the pubs, how it's all going to work. You just stay at home. I don't want you down there first night, all right? I want a beer. I've got 2 kids I've been trying to homeschool. I need a beer down the pub. Don't be selfish. We'll leave it at that, mate. I could go on and on.
Just the 6?
Just the 6.
Just the 6 this week. Yeah, Dan is a very, very angry man, but I think all justified. In all fairness, I think all justified. Well, I live in Wales, right? So we're still locked down in Wales. It's different from England. So I still can't even go out and and have stuff that you can. The pubs are a pipe dream for us at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Oh well, I'm all right here in England, mate.
You're right, mate. Spoiled you are. Spoiled.
Yep.
Okay, finally, just a thank you from us to the Hub members in our Sky WhatsApp chat for their feedback and ideas for the podcast moving forward for the rest of this season and for next season. Thank you so much, guys. For anyone who's not in that, please look into it. It is an incredibly active group, some great players in there, great
good
ideas.
Positions. There's
some really good positions. There are, yeah. So we've got, there's a lot of players in there who are doing really well this season. It's very reactive. It's a great place to be. I personally am in loads of WhatsApp groups, and that one is by far the busiest, but some really, really good stuff in there. And like I say, Ian this afternoon put all our stuff on the fixtures and what he thinks and everything else. So if you're not in there, really have a think about it.
Sorry, mate. Like where we did, Ian put all his stuff in there with the predicted fixtures. Yeah. If I'll ever hear any team news, I'll bung it in there. Do you know what I mean? And with if I do a rash transfer like of half an hour to go, I'll bung it in there. So it is a good.
Like Aubameyang on Wednesday.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, it is a really good little group.
So it's a very worthwhile investment if you're in mini leagues. So that is it from us. We'll be back next Sunday at 9 p.m. Again, apologies, the live stream didn't work. I will definitely get that fixed for next week. Don't worry, but my apologies for that. Dan, where can we find you?
Yeah, Fantasy Football Hub, articles on there, and Twitter, Dan Cox 82.
And Paul, where can we find you?
Twitter at Paul McAnulty, MCANULTY 1.
Fantastic. And my Twitter handle is at Fergie222. So this podcast will be on the Fantasy Football Hub Sky and TFF YouTube channel. So I will upload it as an audio-only file and also available in all our major podcast libraries, including iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast and leave some comments. It helps us increase our rankings, increase our listens, which in turn allows us to continue to improve the production of our work. It also makes sure you don't miss anything. And for the remainder of the season, we are running a competition with a random draw at the end to win a free annual premium Hub membership. Well worth doing, particularly with the Hub going from strength to strength. Our handles on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok are at FFH_HQ, and our podcast Twitter handle is at FFH_Sky. So please follow and feel free to ask any questions. Our website is fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, where you will find everything you need for fantasy football all under one roof, including player comparison tools, the fixture ticker, Opta stats, top player team reveals, and much, much more, which can be used for both Sky and FPL. Also on the website, specifically for Sky, Dan reveals his transfers, captains and general thoughts at 1 p.m. every Friday, exclusively to Fantasy Football Hub members, an essential read if you're a serious Sky player. I also write my weekly multi-format diary article, which includes my Sky team transfers, captains and progress. If you fancy a free 7-day Hub membership, just go to fantasyfootballhub.co.uk/free trial and sign up. I'm sure everyone knows, but the Planet FPL guys also do a brilliant Sky podcast every Wednesday, so make sure you tune into them. And we'll be back live at 9 p.m. next Sunday to give our reaction to the weekend's action and to look forward to our plans, the remainder of Game Week 48 and going into Game Week 49. You won't want to miss it. So thank you and good night. Good night.